Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Srinivas and Lavanya from Dallas Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Srinivas Prabhuji and Lavanya Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining Bhakti Sangha conference call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Padma from Virginia.
Hare Krishna Padma Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. Thank you so much for joining Bhakti Sangha conference call, Mataji. Okay, is there anyone who would like to introduce on the call? Okay, I welcome all of you once again.
The recording has started.
Thank you everyone for joining Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today's Srimad Bhagavatam class on verse 4.23.36 onwards will be given by His Grace Ramgiridhari. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you are there on the call?
Hare Krishna, yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much Prabhuji for giving your association in this Bhakti Sangha conference call regularly and giving your valuable time for us. We are really fortunate to hear from you Prabhuji. Thank you so much. You can take over the call Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for engaging me in the service. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, text number 36 as well as 37. It's a chapter titled Maharaj Ritu Going Back Home. We will read these two verses today, 36 and 37, and we will discuss from them. I'll read both the shlokas, translation and purport, then we can discuss the whole thing in detail. 36. Vijaya Vimukho Raja Shrutva Vaitat Abhiyatyatam Valim Tasmai Harantyagre Rajanaf Tatve Yatam. Translation: if a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Prithu Maharaj 3 times before going forth on his chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes unto him as they rendered them unto Maharaj Prithu, simply upon his order. Purport: since the Kshatriya king naturally desires to rule the world, he wishes to make all other kings subordinate to him. This was also the position many years ago when Prithu Maharaj was ruling over the earth. At that time, he was the only emperor on this planet. Even 5,000 years ago, Maharaj Yudhishthira and Maharaj Parikshit were the sole emperors of this planet. Sometimes the subordinate kings rebelled, and it was necessary for the emperor to go and chastise them. This process of chanting the narrations of the life and character of Prithu Maharaj is recommended for conquering kings if they want to fulfill their desire to rule the world. Text number 37. Muktanya Sango Bhagavati Amalam Bhaktim Udvaham Vainyasya Charitam Punyam Shrunuyat Shravayet Patet. A pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in the transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, but even he, while discharging devotional service, must hear, read, and induce others to hear about the character and life of Prithu Maharaj. Purport: there is a type of neophyte devotee who is very anxious to hear about the pastimes of the Lord, especially the Rasa Leela chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. Such a devotee should know by this instruction that the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj are non-different from the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An ideal king, Prithu Maharaj, exhibited all talents in showing how to rule the citizens, how to educate them, how to develop the state economically, how to fight enemies, how to perform great sacrifices, yajnas, etc. Thus, it is recommended for the Sahajiya or the neophyte devotee to hear, chant, and get others to hear about the activities of Prithu Maharaj, even though one may think himself to be in a transcendental position of advanced devotional service. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are coming to the fag end of Maharaj Prithu's episode, and this episode, what we are currently discussing is the Falashruti. Srimad Bhagavatam gives this Falashruti, means benefit of reading or associating with Srimad Bhagavatam, and this Falashruti is attached to different series, and every series at the end Sukadeva Goswami gives some perspectives for associating and reading this particular series or a set of shlokas. So currently we are concluding probably the last set of verses. After the verses that we dealt today, we have only 2 more verses before you all take up the next chapter or the next series in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the whole idea of Srimad Bhagavatam is to elevate our consciousness, and as we have discussed in one of the earlier sessions, Maharaj Prithu's episode has definitely explained various cross sections of consciousness and devotional growth through these different sets of episodes. So we are going to have some sets of reflections, and through those reflections we will churn these 2 shlokas that we read today. Srila Prabhupada writes in 4th canto, chapter 22, text number 45, he says that a person, if he is in a responsible post, then he need to understand that it is not always that the logic matters. One should learn to think beyond logic. Either verse number 45 or 46, somewhere in the chapter 22, Prabhupada explains, where that Srila Prabhupada says that if any king or any ruler or anybody who is functioning as an authority, he need to operate beyond logic, because logical reasoning will limit his services and modus operandi. The reason Srila Prabhupada is saying about this is today the leadership, or whatever is explained as the kings, they are operating based on the principle of pratyaksha jnana. Pratyaksha means logical understanding. If I am able to comprehend, if I am able to understand, if I am able to correlate, then this can be true. If I am not able to comprehend, if I am not able to correlate, then this cannot have existed, or this is not possible for that to, be truthful. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the important instructions that we understand in various leelas or various episodes is the science of Srimad Bhagavatam is beyond logic. So here it is said that anyone who hears this narration, anyone who chants them 3 times before going forth on his chariot, they will be victorious. I'm sure if all the countries, all the leaders, they understand this in the right sense, probably there is much more sanity amongst themselves in terms of cross-border misunderstanding. The agenda here is not just be materially victorious. The idea is, if somebody even wants to rule properly according to the Vedic injunctions, because in materialistic context, the victory is mapped with power, position, wealth, as well as intelligence. So, if these are all the only criteria, if somebody needs to be measured, then Ravana was much more qualified than Vanarasena. Duryodhana was much more qualified than Pandavasena. But then we get to understand that success and victory, even though they are referring to the external ones, without the internal victory, without succeeding within oneself, the total victory is never granted. So we are going to have 3 sets of reflections. And the first set of reflection is about how Krishna consciousness is not about logical understanding. Krishna consciousness is about understanding through sound vibration. This understanding through logic, which our current younger generation insist upon, is completely refuted, completely rejected by the speakers of Bhagavatam. Maharaj Prithu, when he was ruling, he never ruled based on logic, based on pratyaksha jnana, neither based on his own power and position. Maharaj Prithu, he ruled based on his surrender to the Brahmanas who enthroned him, his respect to Lord Brahma, his understanding of the purposes of life, and his surrender to the Supreme Lord, and eventually following the instructions of Kumaras with the single pointed focus of delivering the masses. He even did not hesitate to challenge Mother Earth when she was depriving the citizens of their rights. So he even challenged, even though she is a woman, she came back and told, "You are challenging a woman. And is it right on your part, Maharaj Prithu?" So Maharaj Prithu is giving a very wonderful response, saying that just because you are a woman, you being rude on our citizens is not acceptable. You being depriving our people for their natural rights is not acceptable. So you are anyway punishable even though you are talking dharma. So in our Krishna consciousness, we need to come out of our logical reasoning mentality, because the current education system, friendship circle, leadership under whom we function in the corporate world or the outside world, they all talk logic. Unfortunately, our students, even adults, who are not very conversant with Vedic science, with the science of Srimad Bhagavatam, they very easily buy to that logic and start questioning the authenticity of Srimad Bhagavatam. There was a movie, Hindi Bollywood movie, by the name Oh My God or something like that. And it stirred a lot of controversy, where the movie is portraying how one should not worship people. I mean, one should not worship Guru, living people, and how God is not there in a temple. Only God is there in some sort of a Daridra Narayana principle, some sort of a very aberrated understanding, and this became a big whatever commercial success movie because of the way it challenged the superstitious beliefs as well as challenged some sort of spiritual practices, even though they had logics and justifications of some wrongdoings happening in the name of spirituality. It was also questioning some genuine processes. The reason I know about this is both Bhakti Vikash Maharaj as well as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, both of them challenged this movie and they have published respectively some articles or a book about it. So when anyone who hears, anyone who associates, anyone who participates, they will immediately conclude that how correct they are, because they are not able to comprehend the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So the reason this reflection is relevant in this context is there may be people who may mock, who may humiliate, who may make fun of us, saying that how is it possible just by we reciting the prayers of Maharaj Prithu 3 times, I can be automatically victorious. So they don't value, they don't give weightage to this understanding of spiritual science, because the premises on which they understand itself is wrong. And our current generation definitely need this insight, saying that what is mentioned over here need to be understood from the perspective of the speakers of the Bhagavatam, not understood verbatim and externally in a logical manner. So Krishna consciousness is beyond logic. Krishna consciousness is beyond Anumana. Krishna consciousness is about parampara based Shabda Brahman. So if somebody is not able to, appreciate Krishna consciousness from a spiritual science standpoint, so then they will definitely misunderstand and wrongly conclude these are all some superstitious beliefs and they need not necessarily be true. So this particular prayer, the Falashruti that is mentioned over here, where anyone who reads and understands this chapter or this narration of Prithu Maharaj 3 times. This is not about literal reading of 3 times. It is about going to the depth of the understanding, principles, applications, as well as that we need to have some transformation within. So the agenda of reading Srimad Bhagavatam is not from a scholarly standpoint. It is purely from a devotional as well as scientific standpoint. If somebody reads this narration 3 times and they read in a scientific analytical manner, then they will be definitely, and if they do that under the bona fide spiritual authority, then naturally they will be definitely getting the successes that are defined over here. And it is not to discount that just by simple mechanical reading also people are given benefits, but that's not what is our ultimate aim. For sure, Prabhupada says, if somebody even reads half a shloka or one-eighth of a shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are benefited. So I am not discounting about the direct effect of just reading these verses. For sure we get some benefit. But as students of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are not here just for some material benefits or some external benefits. We are here for transformation of our consciousness. And transformation of our consciousness happen, then we are able to identify our constitutional position and able to operate based on that principle. So the first reflection here is that as students of Srimad Bhagavatam, we will understand the Srimad Bhagavatam as directed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is to study them scrutinizingly. If some of you participate in our mid-morning Chaitanya Charitamrita class, we are currently concluding a chapter 24th of Madhya Leela, where we are discussing about Atma Ramasya Munayo, 61 explanation of that shloka, where Mahaprabhu, after finishing his all the explanations, is telling Sanatana Goswami, my dear Sanatana, this is just one verse, and I have demonstrated to you how this one verse is relevant and the way we need to study the Bhagavatam scrutinizingly. I encourage and I expect all my students of Srimad Bhagavatam to study each verses of Srimad Bhagavatam in such a scrutinizing manner so that this purpose of reading Srimad Bhagavatam is completely fulfilled. Sanatana Goswami in his prayers to Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Sarva Sastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. So he is glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. If you all have heard about this, this is called Srimad Bhagavatam Mahima Stotra. So we have mentioned about this in many earlier verses in classes. So you can refer this. There's a 5 prayers on Srimad Bhagavatam, where Sri Sanatana Goswami explains the power of reading and associating with Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says, so Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada means that the Srimad Bhagavatam, anyone who comes in contact with the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, Drik Prada means they are completely currently lost in the whirlwind of Kali Yuga. They may be completely lost their intelligence and go after materialistic propensities. So this can cure all the anomalies, all the confusions of the people and bring them to sanity. So whenever we hear such falashruti in different prayers of Srimad Bhagavatam, we should not conclude it as some religious sentiments. We should understand this as a scientific evidence. And always Hanumat Prashek Maharaj says this, that some devotees in Krishna consciousness should take this up as a project and present it to the outside world, how Srimad Bhagavatam's science, how Srimad Bhagavatam's knowledge and direction, when they are applied by the individual, results are definitely seen even today's context. Just that we are not able to know how to apply that knowledge, and that's why we are very wrongly or amateurishly apply them and get into some sort of a confusion. So I would like to conclude this reflection by saying we see our own devotees, we see our own practicing, bhaktas and bhaktins. So they have a challenge where they read Srimad Bhagavatam very superficially and not able to understand the depth of it, and start to doubt our own literature and take shelter of some other processes as a supporting, faith. For example, it is said that chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, if somebody chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly, attentively in the morning, then Srila Prabhupada says that no other problem can attack them. But then, if you see, our own devotees have not developed that much faith in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, so they take shelter to so many other processes. They take shelter to yoga, meditation, and then other therapies, then organic living, cow, so many other distributed agenda as a substitute or as an additional thing to chanting, where they feel that chanting alone can't help them. Wherein Haridas Thakur has very categorically said that if somebody has faith in the words of the spiritual master, somebody can avoid the 10 offenses, and if they can attentively chant the holy name of the Lord, then the pure love of Godhead can independently manifest in that person's heart, even though he may be born of a Chandala, Yavana, or any low-born category. So the message here is that Srimad Bhagavatam is our shelter, and the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam should be accepted, assimilated, and applied in our lives as our Vaishnava Acharyas have suggested. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipunau Sadharma Samstapakau. The Goswamis have very scrutinizingly studied Vedic literature and are giving them directions. And following in the footsteps of Goswamis, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they have further scrutinizingly given us some nectars, and the future generations after Srila Prabhupada have also helped us to assimilate, understand, correlate these subject matters. So it is for us to just show some shraddha as well as some patience in understanding this, not from a logical standpoint, but from a scientific as well as Shabda Brahman standpoint. Then these instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam, these Falashruti, can very easily be understood. Hence, our humble request is that we as students of Srimad Bhagavatam learn to read, apply, appreciate these different pastimes in the right spirit and look for the lessons that is there for us. And that is why every time when we discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, I always bring in reflections and certain lessons from the context which we can apply in our own lives. If we are not able to draw some parallel to our own lives from each and every pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is our unfortunate situation, not that Srimad Bhagavatam is incapable. This is reflection number 1. Reflection number 2 from this current context. How, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can be victorious? I'm giving another perspective. So Srila Prabhupada always explained this point about how our character, our competence, and our compassion, if all three are intact in a person, then we can command respect. I repeat, character, competency, and compassion combined in a person, we can command respect. So Maharaj Prithu had a very good character. He was highly competent, and he had a very good heart towards his dependents, and He was very stern towards the miscreants. And with these three combined, he could become a leader and he could command respect. Even though his father, King Vena, did not do his duties correctly, he had created so much of animosity. Maharaj Prithu could restore back such a faith by his following in the footsteps of the Brahmanas and his seniors. He reinstated peace and prosperity in the society. So in our devotional life, in our devotional journey, we need to make sure that we need to inculcate these three things. We need to work towards our character development, individual self-character development. We need to work towards our devotional competence. When I say devotional competence, which means we become very stern and straight towards our sense gratificatory propensity and try to control our urges, tolerate our agitations, and try to walk in the path as laid out by our seniors. And that way we will be able to win over our own challenges that comes from our senses, mind, and intelligence and surroundings. And with respect to compassion, we definitely need to be self-compassionate in the first place, as well as we need to extend ourselves to all the needy devotees or needy people and help them up take up Krishna consciousness. So in the process of Krishna consciousness, we need to learn to inculcate character, competence, as well as compassion. So if any one of them is missing, we may not become very successful in our preaching services as well as in our inspiring others to take up Krishna consciousness. If somebody is having good competency in explaining Shastras, if somebody is having good compassion in helping others, but if they are not of good character, if they don't if they themselves don't practice what they preach, then for sure very soon they will bring in blasphemy, because one who does not practice what he preaches is an hypocrite. If somebody very nicely practices and have a good character, if somebody is even competent to clarify and explain and preach Vedic literature, but if somebody is not compassionate, which is unlikely, but if somehow or other his compassion is not to extend help to others, then he remains a miser, selfish person, and Krishna is not happy with such a person. Suppose if somebody is having very good character and is also compassionate, but if he is not competent, or if you have not studied Prabhupada books, if you have not understood Krishna consciousness philosophy, if that person has not, taken up the practices that is recommended in terms of scrutinizingly studying Shastras, then easily Mayavadis, all the other bogus philosophers will easily take over. That is why in our offering to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we do this. If you see the prayer Namo Vishnu Padaya and Namaste Saraswati Deve talks about these three things: his character, his compassion, as well as his competence. And that is why Srila Prabhupada commands respect not only from Vaishnava community, but also from leadership community, also from other religious faith. Even though their practices may be slightly opposite, everybody still respects Srila Prabhupada because of his character, competence, and compassion. So here the Falashruti says that how by we following the instructions and the life of Maharaj Prithu, we will be victorious, because by we scrutinizingly studying Maharaj Prithu's episode, we will also develop good character, because the instructions given in there, the directions given in there are helping us to reflect upon what we need to inculcate, what we need to give up. It also gives us the courage to fight against adharma. It is also, helping us to become competent enough to challenge materialistic ideologies. And finally, it teaches about the compassion that we need to have for ourselves as well as for the near and dear ones. So my second reflection, I would like to conclude by saying we are not consultants in Krishna consciousness. We are the ones who are cultivating Krishna consciousness. So the difference between consultancy versus cultivation, if anybody is in the field of consulting, whether it is IT consulting or management consulting, the consultants, nobody, you know, nowhere, no organizations, they insist upon what they are consulting, what suggestions they are giving others in terms of practices. They themselves have to follow. In a sense, what I was trying to say is, if I'm a consultant in an organization, I may give ideas and directives to different chief executives to how to make their business successful. But unfortunately, these consultants, they seldom apply these same rationale in their own lives. We had my father undergo bypass surgery in the year 2014-15. The cardiologist or the surgeon who did the bypass surgery is a very expert guy, and he has done close to 3 or 4 bypass surgeries in one single day. I mean, that's his capability. So when I met him after the surgery, the nurses over the operation theater, they said that the doctor has gone for a smoke break. So this guy is a cardiologist. He is curing everybody's ailments, but he himself smokes cigarette between every surgery and constantly spoils his own health. The reasoning that they have given is that the stress or the intensity with which he does the operation, he needs some stress buster. So they all give some stupid, idiotic logic of why they can remain, like that, and how we should be organized. So typically, the Kali Yuga hypocritical mentality is, we remain very good consultants. I am talking from a Krishna consciousness standpoint also. We as practitioners, they are very good, very scientific, very organized in giving everybody advices, in telling people how they need to be behaving, telling people how they need to study Srimad Bhagavatham, give wonderful classes, give scientific explanations, give various directives for them to practice Krishna consciousness, and tell different strategies. But when it comes to self-cultivation of Krishna consciousness, we fail miserably. So the point that I want to say in number 2 is, we as devotees in the journey of Krishna consciousness, we need to make sure that we cultivate Krishna consciousness, and we demonstrate our cultivation by our practices, and our practices will encourage others to practice, and we will command respect rather than we demand respect. So let us switch ourselves away from the consultancy mode to the cultivation mode. In consultancy mode, we only dictate, respect, or expect some materialistic results. But when we are in the cultivation mode, we definitely command respect, and we will inspire many, many people following in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada was successful because Srila Prabhupada demonstrated what he preached. In one of the earlier interviews, Hari Sauri Prabhu, that time he was a sannyasi, he did mention that as Westerners, all of them very scrutinizingly they analyzed Srila Prabhupada's daily life. So they said that wherever Srila Prabhupada used to travel, whichever place he go, how much ever his routine has got changed, Srila Prabhupada's lifestyle and Srila Prabhupada's practices have never got changed. Srila Prabhupada implemented, believed, operated completely based on what he preached. So here in this current context, when it is explained that a devotee, a pure devotee, whoever is executing different processes of devotional service, even if they are situated in their transcendental position, even if they are completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, still he is expected to practice his daily practices without any deviation. One time Srila Prabhupada was sitting on his desk, and there was a servant cleaning his room. Srila Prabhupada was in chanting beads, doing japa, and after finishing his japa, he kept the bead bag on the table and pounced on the table. Now that I have finished my daily rounds of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, now I can do any damn thing in this world. And he pounced on the table with full conviction. The point that was, expressed was Srila Prabhupada was not evading. Even if he had not chanted, even if he had not practiced what he has told, probably with the kind of faith and surrender everybody had, nobody would have, doubted or questioned. But Srila Prabhupada make sure, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu make sure, it educate all of us, each and every one of us, the principle of character, competence, compassion, which can command respect. Last reflection context where it explains that how ideal king exhibited all talents in showing how to rule the citizens, how to fight enemies, how to perform various sacrifices, etc. This is for the sacrifice of a devotee to heal and get to heal. This is something that played primary agenda in my services in a mass group of engineers, where I get to see they were superficially conscious. They are trying to evade their duties, their life, giving consciousness as so, as conscious movement, it is extremely important that we are.
Hare Krishna, I don't think we can hear properly. The line is breaking too much.
Krishna.
Yeah, the line is breaking up very much.
I hope it is okay now. So I was just saying that of late we see devotees apply Krishna consciousness highly in a superficial manner without realizing that Krishna consciousness is not just part of our life. Krishna consciousness is a way of life. So I'm of late hearing different episodes from different families to whom I'm counseling, where we are giving Krishna conscious reasons to evade Krishna conscious responsibilities. So this is very alarming and confusing, where devotees, sometimes grahasthas, wife or husband, they give Krishna conscious reasons how they need not, how they cannot, how they should not be doing certain set of things because they have to be Krishna conscious. But Prabhupada has very clearly explained that Maharaj Prithu exhibited all talents and shown how they are all dovetailed towards the path of dharma and devotional life and not just some materialistic success. So we as practicing devotees, we need to somehow or other apply this intelligence and not to evade our conditional responsibilities as well as constitutional responsibilities. This Krishna consciousness project, the process of Krishna consciousness, it is not just a superficial science. This is a science of transforming one's existence, transforming one's thought process, and purifying one's set of activities. Nowhere Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has encouraged us to relinquish our duties. Rather, he has always encouraged us to perform the duties, keeping Krishna in the center. If you are definitely getting encouraged to move from your good service to great service, the reasoning cannot be that I kill my good services to take up great services. Rather, the approach should be we pass on what we consider as good services to some other devotees or some other responsible member for whom these good services will be great services, then assume great services. The reason I'm saying is this: if you have children to take care, if you have elders to take care, if you have some duties to perform, if you have some obligations to take care, we as practicing devotees should demonstrate to all the neophytes, all the so-called early, newly practicing devotees, how they all need to be done, keeping Krishna in the center. And if you are inspired to take up next higher level of lifestyle, whether it is going to become a sannyasi, whether it is going to become a renunciant, whether it is going to become, taking up some other higher responsibilities, we need to see to that those currently being managed, they are given to some other responsible people so that the services go on. We see of late devotees very superficially applying Krishna consciousness, not taking care of their husbands, not taking care of their wives, not taking care of their children, not taking care of their health, not taking care of their even jobs properly, and to get a complaint that Hare Krishna devotees are not so organized or productive. And very sorry to say, one of the devotees mentioned this to me, that he will never hire a devotee in his company because all the devotees are escapists and they are not responsible and committed. They give Krishna consciousness reason for not doing their own responsibilities and duties. This is a very disheartening statement, and our movement is not a sentimental movement. Our movement is a scientific movement. So Srila Prabhupada is definitely encouraging all of us to make sure that we learn to apply Krishna consciousness in all the walks of life, rather than we try to be Krishna consciousness by evading all the walks of life. Evasion artificially is going to cause us trouble. Rather than we need to learn to the process of renunciation. And renunciation is a scientific process and is a gradual process. It starts from our understanding, it starts from our assimilation, applying, and eventually we try to inspire others. So as a third reflection I want to share here is that we as practicing devotees may be imperfect in our execution, but can still remain pure in our consciousness. So hence my third reflection is about how Krishna consciousness is an imperfectly pure science, rather than we expect Krishna consciousness to be a perfect science, because perfection is not possible early. Second is, perfection is not expected of us early. Third is, perfection in Krishna consciousness means purity in consciousness, rather than perfection in what we are actually doing in the external sense. We can still remain imperfectly pure rather than perfectly impure or imperfectly pure. So the point is that in Krishna conscious journey, like what Sabari has done, in Krishna conscious journey, what Hanuman and Vanara Sena has done, in our spiritual journey, how various devotees, the fruit vendor, how Kolavecha Sridhar, how various devotees, they have demonstrated that the basis of our Krishna consciousness is not perfection. The basis of the Krishna consciousness is purity, and purity is our perfection. Hence, the third reflection is about Krishna consciousness being an imperfectly pure science. So please learn to apply this science in our own lives, even though we are not able to achieve the perfection in our materialistic life. If we can somehow or other dovetail all our activities towards Krishna, at least we are purifying those actions and achieving the real goal of life. So this is a third reflection in the current context, where Srila Prabhupada says we should not remain neophyte and just apply Krishna consciousness in a superficial manner, just to aim only to hear Rasalila and some confidential pastimes of Krishna, rather than try to understand the Sankhya, try to understand the different scientific aspects of Krishna consciousness, not just theoretically, but apply practically. So to conclude, or to kind of summarize, we had three sets of reflections into this current context, which exemplifies, which demonstrates how Maharaj Prithu led such a life. Reflection number one is that Krishna consciousness is not about being logical. Krishna consciousness is beyond logical. If something that is not being understood by pratyaksha and logical reasoning, that doesn't mean that it is not correct just because we couldn't comprehend or we couldn't explain. So Krishna consciousness is pretty much about how we are trying to inherit the spiritual signs from spiritual authorities and try to take this up into our lives, following in their footsteps, and not try to hung up or scratch the surface and argue just because I can't comprehend this cannot be true. The second reflection is, rather than we being in the consultant mode, let us be in the cultivation mode and cultivate good character, cultivate compassion, and develop competency in terms of spiritual clarity and spiritual science properly understood. That way we will be able to command respect. So Maharaj Prithu, this Falashruti, they are all relevant because when we think beyond logic, when we learn to cultivate Krishna consciousness, then naturally we are successful, naturally we are powerful, naturally we are exemplary, and naturally we will be able to win more and more souls to the Supreme Lord. And last but not least, the last reflection is about how Krishna consciousness is about signs of imperfectly pure signs, where we are expected of us to be pure by the even though we may not be perfect in what we are doing. So the songs that you may sing may not be perfectly tuned, but if they are pure in consciousness, Krishna embraces us. The food that we cook may not be perfectly, prepared, but if they are prepared with pure consciousness, Krishna accepts them. So if anything that we do, if we are not able to reach perfection by any definition, but at least if we are pure in its purpose by connecting it Krishna and keeping Krishna in the center, we will be victorious. So hence, we request all the practitioners not to evade their conditional responsibilities and constitutional responsibilities. Rather, they implement Krishna consciousness in every walks of their life and show it to the whole world that Krishna consciousness is the way of living and not just part of the living. Maharaj Prithu did that. Dhruva Maharaj did that. Parikshit Maharaj did that. Everybody is them. Prabhupada explains that in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about Janaka Maharaj. Krishna refers his own example. Krishna tells Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, I as Supreme Personality of Godhead does not necessarily need to perform my duties, but I still went to Dwaraka, did my duties as a son, did my duties as a citizen, did my duties as a king. I did everything that I'm supposed to be doing. So hence we will all need to understand that Krishna consciousness is not to just relinquish all our responsibilities and going and sitting in Dham. Definitely going and sitting in Dham is glorious, but at what cost? At what arrangement? At what understanding? Just to be an escapist, if you do that, then for sure our consciousness is anyway not being pure. We will continuously remaining to suffer. Rather, if our consciousness is become purified, we will be able to definitely inspire others to take up Krishna consciousness as a practical science, not otherwise give them an impression that it is just some sentimental understanding. So these are all my 3 sets of reflections into this current context. I'm not sure if the whole connection was good or bad. Just in case if any portion of the lecture was not clear, or if there are any questions or comments, please let me know. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes, you were coming in clearly throughout most of the class. It was only when I interrupted that time it was not intelligible, so I had to say something. But I do have a question about commanding. I think it's both a question and a comment about commanding respect through competency and character and compassion. The question is if you could. Well, one thing I would have included the character and compassion, because it seems like compassion is part of that character that we want, right? But if you would, as character as a separate item, if you would elaborate on what you mean by developing character.
I'll elaborate. I will refer what Kapiladev has told Devahuti as character. Kapiladev has told Devahuti that as a devotee, one need to have the following characters. He is telling that Titikshava Karunika Surda Sarvadehina Ajata Sadhuva Shanta Sadhva Sadhu Bhushana. He is saying Sadhu Bhushana means the ornaments of a sadhu are the following. Titikshava, tolerance. Karunika, mercy. Suhridat Sarvadehinam, welfare about every living being. And Ajata does not have any enemies. Sadhruva means very, mode of goodness. Santa means polite. These are all Sadhu Bhushana. For sure, mercy can be classified as, category, or you can explain mercy as compassion. But the reason I'm excluding compassion, or giving it as a separate line item, is because generally we are compassionate. To be compassionate on others is not so difficult, but being self-compassionate is equally important. So it is coming from two different perspectives. One perspective is the general characters are what I just listed by Kapiladev, and there are many more you can go on. And compassion is an exclusive agenda spoken because our movement is a preaching movement. Once you have very good mercy, okay, I am merciful, I don't harm animals, I don't hurt people. That's mercy. But compassion is one step forward, going and saying, I'm concerned about people not taking up Krishna consciousness, so I'm going to go out of the way and go and give them some help. So when I was trying to refer about character, I was just referring about these all qualities that are listed. And when I was referring about compassion, I was thinking about the Krishna consciousness that I am practicing. I will see to that. I'll go out of the way to help others practice Krishna consciousness. Making sense?
Okay, so let's see. So some of the qualities you mentioned of a person with character is that they're tolerant. I guess tolerance referring to let's say
urges.
Let's say urges.
Yeah.
I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking. Let's say if somebody does commit some inappropriate behavior towards yourself, that you're tolerant of, like offenses of others, let's say, or something like that.
That comes under even a bit of compassion, because if I'm compassionate means that I am tolerant enough to be compassionate towards you to help you out. But here the reference are in terms of character, I'm telling tolerance because tolerating agitations and tolerating urges are the very important thing in your character development. Verse number 1, verse number 2 of Nectar of Instruction, Srila Prabhupada talks about it. In my last week's class, I was referring about the theme that I spoke in Vrindavan recently on Sanatana. Sanatana is service attitude, attracts natural attractions towards Supreme Lord, provided we learn to tolerate agitations and neutralize anartha. So tolerating agitations is very important for our self-development, and these agitations comes from different corners and very elaborately discussed by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instructions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so tolerance was one thing. I know you said the list can go on, but tolerance, mercy, meaning not being harmful to others, being concerned for the welfare of others, which you categorize as compassion.
Yes.
Being polite to others.
Not harm, not kill animals, being a vegetarian or whatever you may call as a Krishna prasadam, and mercy has got it's about being kind.
Mm-hmm. And then so this is
you can get to know this verse that I listed from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, text number 21.
3:25-21.
Yeah, so the whole list is there.
Okay. Yeah, one other thing I would have only said is that, yeah. Also, how about elaborating on what you mean by competency?
I mean by competency in terms of, say for example, Haridas Thakur was challenged by the king and he had sent a prostitute to influence him. It was Haridas Thakur who put up with that situation and converted the prostitute. So he was competent enough because he was firm on his practices and he was humble enough and he had full faith in the process. So that's why he went ahead and did certain things. But in our own devotional life, we need to learn to accept some types of services and learn to be careful with some types of services. We see that a brahmachari preaching to a mataji. It's not even though you may be intelligent, but we need to be careful and see that is that your competency to do that or not. Competency comes from three different things. If somebody comes and gives a complaint or some asking for some help or seeking some direction, if you yourself go through that difficulty, suppose I'll give an example. I go to a doctor for my cold, and the doctor himself is sneezing and coughing up and does not know to take care of his own cold. So it brings in a basic fundamental doubt that can he cure me? So competency means if you are expecting, you are to help others, are you capable enough to cure yourself and cure them? That's what is competency. It's like if you want to become a father, if you are becoming a guru, if you are becoming a well-wisher, we need to evaluate what is my limits under which I can operate. Beyond that point in time, we also would need to take others' help to extend help. Otherwise, we ourselves will lose our own Krishna consciousness. So when we are extending help to others to support in Krishna consciousness, it is not at the cost of compromising our Krishna consciousness. It is at the strength of our Krishna consciousness, but we need to evaluate that very clearly. So competency is that we need to know till what extent I can go to help, beyond which I need to refer that candidate to other persons.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. The only other thing I would have said, which is, I don't know if it's more like a comment, but, you were saying that if we develop character, compassion, and competency, we will be commanding rather than demanding respect. But I just feel that, we also have to be careful that we don't try and develop these qualities for that motive.
Got you.
Got
you.
Yeah,
very valid point. Very, very valid point. So the agenda, the reason, the respect is a natural outcome Krishna gives us. We, as a practitioner, need to learn to pass on the credits to our predecessors, not to hold it back with us. But then, respect we will get is the part of the natural outcome of this process. Krishna pass on the credit. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the credit to Haridas Thakur and gave him the title Namacharya. But Haridas Thakur was humble enough to deny that and gave all the credit back to Mahaprabhu. So we would command. Prithu Maharaj is commanding respect, but Prithu Maharaj is not dwelling on that. And so if you see further that he's going back home, back to Godhead, he was not holding him back, saying that he achieved. He just followed the footsteps and we got the results. So when he was commanding respect, I was telling from the perspective of followers, not from the perspective of the person himself. Srila Prabhupada never once wanted somebody to respect him, but Srila Prabhupada taught all his students how to respect. So this both was simultaneously true. So from that perspective, we need to learn to command respect so that the process is respected, so that people takes it up more scientifically rather than just try to logically evade the reasons of not following in Krishna consciousness. So I agree to your point that yes, we should not do all these things to just command respect, in that case our character itself is tarnished. So hence we should always give the respects that you would receive through the process to our parampara. That is why in all the correspondences we are encouraged to say, I please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. The reason we say this, we will definitely get glory because it's Krishna's duty to pass on the glory. But it is our duty to not hold back that glory. We should pass it on further up the ladder and stay humble. That is why I always say to my students, fly high by staying grounded. I stay grounded in my consciousness, but fly high to spread Krishna consciousness. So from that perspective, in our Krishna consciousness, commanding respect is not the outcome we desire, but that is the result that Krishna offers it to us. What you do with us tells about your character too.
Yeah, thank you for this explanation of why we say all glories to Srila Prabhupada. That was nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. We are very, very grateful for your classes. I've noticed that whatever is the text, you have always turned out very practical nectarian points, and that is very much relevant to us, that we can put it in practice. So thank you so much for your classes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Anybody else has any comments or questions? Great. Thank you so much for engaging in this service.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Very, very, very beautiful class, Prabhuji, and very practical. So thank you so much, Prabhuji. If no one has any question or comments, we can end now. This pure obeisances to Prabhuji and all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhevacha patitanam
Very nice.
Hare Krishna.